Students, Assalamu alaikum. Our today's topic for discussion is The Scarecrow, written by Satyajit. In today's lesson, we will discuss the summary of the story The Scarecrow. Right? So let's start. Mriganko Babu was a popular and famous writer. A club in Durgapur invited him to a cultural function in order to felicitate him. He had to travel by car when he was returning after the function. He had to travel by car. When he was returning after the function, his car ran out of the petrol. It was due to the carelessness of his driver Sudhir. Mrigan Babu did not lose his temper. Sudhir said that he would bring some petrol from Panagar, so Mriganku Babu gave him money to bring petrol. Mriganku Babu felt that he would have to wait for at least 2.5 hours. The students, Mriganku Babu was a good-natured man. He usually did not scold his driver or servants, but the thought of sitting for more than 2.5 hours in the car made him irritable. Mriganko Babu sat in his car. He did not believe in superstitions. He did not believe in superstitions. He smoked a few cigarettes. It was the end of January. All the crops had been removed from the fields. There were empty fields for miles. There was a dark forest on the eastern side. On the western side, things were not different. In the middle of a field was a scarecrow. Although it was winter, he began to feel warm in the sun for a while. He, that is Mriganko Babu, returned to his car, took out a detective novel, but he could not continue reading it. Two ambassador cars and a lorry happened to pass by them. One of the cars was going in the direction of Calcutta. None of the drivers waited to ask if he needed any help. A local breeze began to blow. He felt cold. It could be cooler after some time. It was already 5 o'clock. He felt that the Sudhir had landed him into trouble. He began to think of a plot for the story. The Bharat magazine had asked for a story, but he had not yet written for them. A plot had started to form in his head. Even during the short journey from Durgapur, he found sitting in the car boring. He felt lonely. There was someone else. It was that scarecrow. It stood in a winter crop of a patch of land. A bamboo pole had been fixed vertically on the ground. Another was placed horizontally across it. The two ends of the second pole stretched like two arms. A shirt had put on this. Its sleeves covered its arms. On the free end of the vertical pole an earthen pot had been placed upside down. The pot had been painted black. Big eyes had been drawn on it with white paint. Birds were frightened of this figure. Sunlight appeared through a crack and fell on the scarecrow. Mriganko Babu saw that the scarecrow was wearing a printed shirt. Mriganko Babu had seen the shirt before. The time was 20 minutes past 4. He took some tea from the flask. He felt a little warmer. Another ambassador car passed. Sudhir had not yet come. The sun was about to set in just about 5 minutes. A reddish light fell on the scarecrow. Sudhir would not come for another hour. Mriganko Babu continued to feel drawn towards that figure. He looked steadily at it. In a few minutes he noticed a few things which made his heart beat faster. He wondered if its appearance had changed somewhat, or his two arms had lowered a little. He wondered if it was standing a little less stiffly and more like a real man. The black spot also seemed smaller. He began to ask himself he began to ask himself if the figure of Scarecrow could come to life. But he was sure that the Scarecrow had moved. It was moving towards him. It was walking with a limp, but it still had two legs. Instead of earthen pot, it had human head, but it still had the same shirt on and slightly dirty dhoti. And slightly dirty dhoti. The Scarecrow even addressed Mringanko Bapu. The Scarecrow even addressed Mriganko Babu as Babu. It was a human voice. He had recognized it. It was the voice of Abhiram, who had been Mriganko Babu's servant many years ago. His village used to be somewhere in this region. He was from Mankar. It was the name of the station before Panagar. Mriganko was terrified. He took a few steps backwards. He took a few steps backwards. He stood leaning against his car. Abhiram was standing at a distance of 10 yards. The latter asked Mriganko if he could recognize him. Mriganko asked him if he was Abhiram. Abhiram felt surprised that Mriganko Babu had recognized him even after all these years. Abhiram did not look different from a normal man. Mriganko Babu told him that it was his shirt that reminded him of Abhiram. He had bought that shirt for him several years ago. Abhiram said that he had done a lot for him, but somehow the relationship between the two had ended so badly. Mriganko Babu recalled what had happened 3 years ago. Abhiram had worked for his family for 20 years. He was trusted by everyone. One day he lost his head and he stole Mriganko Babu's watch, which had been given to him as a wedding gift. Abhiram denied the charge. He had the opportunity and the time to remove the watch. Mriganko Babu's father called the witch doctor. He made an ordinary wicker trace, rotate. It pointed at Abhiram. Thus Abhiram lost his job. Abhiram then asked Mriganko Babu if he knew what happened to him after he had left. He himself answered this question. He never worked anywhere else. He he could not work because he fell seriously ill. He had no money to go to a doctor or buy medicines or even eat properly. He never recovered. His son kept his shirt. He wore it for some time, then it got torn. So it became something a scarecrow could wear. Thus, he became the scarecrow. He knew that one day he would meet Mrigenko Babu. His heart longed to meet him. He wanted to tell him what he had learned after death. Mriganko Babu asked Abhiram what he had learned. Abhiram told Mrigan Babu to look under his wardrobe. After reaching his home in Calcutta, he would find his watch there, push it to the bag. It has been lying there for last 3 years. His new servant did not sweep every corner, so he did not find it. If you got the watch, you would realize that Abhiram was not a thief. Abhiram wished him good night. He said that he had got his peace. It was getting dark, and Abhiram disappeared. Soon the figure of Abhiram became hazy. At this very time, Sudhir returned with petrol. The sound of Sudhir's voice woke Mriganko. He had fallen asleep in the car thinking of a suitable plot for a story. He felt that Scarecrow could be a suitable plot for his story. In his hand he held his pen. As soon as he opened his eyes, he glanced quickly at this scarecrow. It was still standing in the distance, exactly as he had seen it before. On reaching home, Mriganko Babu went straight to his wardrobe, to his room. He searched under his wardrobe. He found that watch. Easily, he decided that he would never consult a witch doctor if he lost something in future. Thank you very much.